old man, hanging out with you once again this morning. And today, oh man, I salute you guys. You're doing so well out there. I know there's been a lot of retrograde activity going on. There's been a lot of, struggle for survival, for emotional wellness, for heck, just a little peace of mind. I mean, hardly anyone seems to have it these days. Yet everyone does. Peace is within us always. We find it there in our heart, in that centering place inside of our chest, which is right above our physical heart and over to the left a little. It's in the center of your chest. It's a energetic gathering place. It's what I call the one heart in all. It's where Great Spirit lives. Where it is, this thing you call God and you project outside yourself, which you see all around you, of course, is inside you as well. The same way it's inside everything else that grows and lives around you, including the stone people as well as the dirt people and that which seems more living, that which has a more visible life and breathes and soaks up the sun and becomes a work of heart, an artful work of heart. Yeah, poetry in motion. It's all so dang beautiful. Yet we get so caught up and swept away in our daily struggles just to survive, just to be, just to live. Let alone have a relationship, take care of what needs to be taken. Just be happy. I mean, do we have time for happiness nowadays? I mean, there's so much struggle and it seems very constant and consistent. And sometimes you gotta wonder if some bastard somewhere hasn't just designed life to be this way, a full-time occupation that keeps you away from your heart, keeps you from finding what gets you going, what's really going to save your little backside, you know what I mean? And it is, in my humble opinion, that way, but it doesn't have to be. There's a more relaxed way of living. You have to let certain standards go. Speaking to those of you that live a softer life, there's a lot of folks already out there living fairly simply and having a great life because of it. And simplicity is the key, A lot of us have surrounded ourselves with these trappings, big houses, big cars, and color TVs everywhere, that kind of stuff. I mean, the typical gotta have too much excess kind of thing, And, folks, as we get more into our heart, we're going to just naturally gravitate to spaces where simplicity becomes key. And if these big old houses and big old cars don't make sense to us anymore, we'll replace them with something far simpler. Or we'll put them to such creative use that they become simple. For example, a big mansion could be opened to a bunch of folks that need a place to live. Get them off the streets. Help them survive. Help them thrive. Get them going. Most of us get so caught in our personal struggle. And that's where we lose it. And then we get distracted by the struggle in life, too. And further lose it. And now the bottom's falling out. Because you could have a little comfort in that kind of space. Even though you weren't happy. Even though you were damn depressed a lot of the time. There's a comfort in that. It's a place to rest, in that depression. It was a place to be dark and, oh, poor is me, woe is me, but it felt good because it was a woe is you kind of thing. Life's rough sometimes and people seem so God-blessed heartless and cruel. Cruelty seems to be the rule of the day. And the struggle is the cruelest thing of all. Struggling with what? And why should we? Why should we struggle for anything? I'm telling you, this warlike mentality's been so bred into us that we think it's normal, we think it's natural to fight something all the time. And baby, this is what kills us, one way or the other. It ain't cigarettes that kill you, it ain't bullets that kill you. It ain't illnesses that kill you. It's the struggle that wears you down so that you do die. You know, you get that psychic point where you just can't take anymore. And you check out. And you go and process that life and start planning another one. Whatever, you know, however you see it. But that's the living truth here. So if there's any solutions, if we're really going to move into an age of peace where we're free of trauma and struggle, well, what do you think we got to do? Give up the struggle? Well, it's all part of letting go, like I talked about before. But the struggle in particular is at the center of our feelings of unworthiness. You know, that's how we're held down, is by struggling. Whether we're winning or losing, there's always a certain amount of guilt, a certain amount of shame at the lower levels that go on, you know, and pulls us down and keeps us out of our heart, out of our normal, natural intelligence that can see and appreciate the life in all things. And not only that, but embrace it, love it, and help it grow as a result of that. You know, by first embracing and loving what we see inside of ourselves, all parts of it. Now, you may not understand everything going on inside, but the more it becomes visible to you as you go into these meditative states, communicate with that one heart, the more visible the abject parts as well as the more reasonable parts of yourself become to you. And, you know, it might freak some of you out to see that you have such nasty thoughts that have gone on in subdural levels before. Now all of a sudden they're out there on the surface where you can see them. But that's all about management. That's all about stepping out of this struggle. As you become more conscious, your eyes are more naturally drawn to darker things. You see them inside yourself as well as all around you. But the idea is to see beyond the illusion of darkness. And how do we do this? How do we end this struggle? Well, some say it's by becoming objective. I mean, you know, that's a lousy piece of terminology if you ask me. You know what I mean? God. There are so many ways to describe this simple thing. But what I'll describe it as is just backing away from the struggle inside. You know, you see those thoughts going on. The more conscious you become, the more you see, the more aware you are of the thoughts that will pull you down, that will keep you worrying about everything, etc., etc., etc. But you can successfully disengage from them. First, you focus on the love in your heart center. The love that you feel breathing life into you every moment that you live. Become conscious of that too. Be aware of what this love is that creates life. And you'll begin to understand yourself far better than you ever have before. And from that understanding point comes understanding of others, so that you can more successfully aid them in getting out of the struggle as well. But you got to get out of it first, and here's where you do it. You know, you just back away from those thoughts a little bit. When you're in these communicative, meditative states, when you feel the life emanating in your third eye, your heart, your open hands, the palms of your hands, when you feel all that, when you're in that place where you can travel and journey through time, space, spirit, all realms, there's unlimited possibilities there. And each time you go into that space, you bring a little of it back here with you. You're a little more conscious in this life. So then you have to learn to balance aspects that you hadn't seen before. Stepping out of the struggle. And this is how. You love all life, no matter what form it presents itself in. That leads to a certain respect for all energies and voices inside of yourself. That leads to an ability to actually calm and quiet them when they're getting out of hand. To just not say shut up, but just say, hey, Be at peace. Take it easy. I don't need this nonsense right now. Etc. and so on. You know what I mean? There's various ways that it comes to you. But it will lead to a settling. If you can sit there patiently and just let these thoughts go by and not be attached to them, not be drug away by them. And when you see yourself getting drug away by them, bring yourself back to this heart-centered place. That's the only struggle you ever need to engage in, and that's not a struggle. That's just remembering where you really are, where you ought to be, and taking yourself back to that space. It's as simple as pie. Pie's not easy, by the way. Making crust is tough. So you can't say simple as pie and mean it. That's a long, complicated process for a lot of us. But it is very simple. It really and truthfully is. And you can feel it. You can exist in that moment right now. Right in this space. In your heart. Right in this moment. And just let these thoughts flow by. The stuff that's yelling at you, what a bunch of bullshit. You can't relax, you've got to fight. Do you realize how programmed you are when you hear this kind of stuff? Do you realize how much control you've given those kind of forces inside of yourself? How you've been taught to fight for everything, for every breath, for every inch of life you're gaining, for every bit of intelligence, for all the monetary and property wealth you're gaining, if you are. Not everybody can do that these days. The economy sucks compared to what it was. But that's another story. But even that, don't let yourself be drug away by what you see going on in the world around you. It's kind of a reflection of the struggle inside of yourself that you're beginning to let go of. And you see, when these forces are mounted against us, when there's military and police coming at us, and they're wanting to fill up concentration camps and start the horror all over again, you know what I mean, and just keep it going forever. When you see that kind of stuff coming at you, this is when you really got to step out of the struggle. And inside yourself, be as loving to yourself as you can possibly be. Join hands with others, hearts with others, whether they're there with you or a billion miles away. Engage others with you. And just send loving blessings to these troops that advance on you, that may be firing weapons and so forth, This is them, these people that occupy such spaces and energies and do such work, begging for release. This is the darkness that's behind them, that's inside of them, begging for release. They act up in this way, not just to terrorize you, but because they want out of it. They want it over with. These are noble souls that have gained a presence of heart that has been dastardly, deadly, mean, ugly, anti-life, cruel to the maximum. Where do you think all of our cruelty comes from? You see, in our misery, our pain, we reach out, we cast out to others and create more pain and more pain and more pain. Because of the struggles we're involved in, because of the powerlessness we feel. Well, babies, this is how you become empowered. This is how you stop the war on your soul, let alone on your person. Love every fucking thing. Leave nothing out. Doesn't mean you agree with it. Doesn't mean you employ it in any way. In that love is the objectivity that you need to release any control such thoughts and activities may have had over you. From the natural urges of the heart, you begin to care. When you can honestly cast upon your enemy the blessing of enlightenment. And that's what you're there to share with these people, because that's what they're begging for, and the spirits behind them. and the ones who rule over them, clear into the upper layers of the shadow government if you want, wherever you want to go with it. They're all begging for release from this torment, this struggle, this insanity that's become this world that we live in as human beings. And there's your solutions, right there. Inside yourself, inside your heart, inside our heart, because it is one heart in every being that lives. So when I say you, I'm talking to me too, because you is me and me is you. We got the same heart. It's more than a soul connection. It's more than a deep bond that spans the ages. It's the reality of love in life, truth, in motion. And babies, you may not always be able to hold that space. You may make some mistakes, and some very bitter and hard ones. But you, in this loving state, you can immediately forgive yourself and others and move on. Doesn't mean you take shit from anyone. Because in this love you have the ability to draw whatever lines you need to. But the more conscious you become, the more conscious others around you will become, no matter what level they're at. And you'll have less and less problem with the difficult people around you. And in the meantime, if you need to isolate, to separate from the struggle with another, do that. If you got to move across the country, do that. If you want to move halfway around the world, do that. Whatever you feel inspired to do. But give yourself a safe space in which to play in which to grow in which to find the simplicity of your heart and the beauty and the truth that lives there. Babies, I'm engaged in it same as you are. I've got some places with it, and I'm getting more places with it, so you can. But we're all doing it together. We're all in it together. There is no one being or one person that's the Savior of all. That's inside of you and all our Savior. Each and every one of us and all of us together to boot. And that includes all life within and around us. Humans are not separate and isolate from anything, even though we feel like we are. And we feel so isolated that we can kill and maim with impunity and eat the animal's flesh and so on. I mean, you know, we've gone to some great extremes here. And now it's time we return to this heart, this consciousness of living that exists in all life. We can't pretend any longer. And the more you do pretend that you're separate and alone and isolated from it all, the more it's going to bite you on the ass. Because it loves you too. And it's here to remind you that it needs your love. It needs you to be an active participant in this love that creates and grows things and makes the experience that we all so richly enjoy. Friends, brothers and sisters, babies in arms, be in loving arms, not in arms that are made into weapons, especially weapons of war. Cease and desist inside of yourself in this loving way by respecting everything that lives inside of you, and no matter what thought it may create or what activity or how insane your activities before now have been, how cruel or uncruel, how caring and how you've been brutalized by the world. Let go of the idea of victimhood or mastery, either one. Be master of love. Be master of heart. Be master of caring. And when you truthfully care, when we all do, that's peace on earth. When we finally get back to that simple little place of knowing that we actually give a shit about something and somebody, and that, good God, we care about everything. But we've just been trained out of this. We've been trained to fight, to be warriors. Well, there's a warrior aspect to it, but it's not a fight. It's not a struggle. It's called persistence. Staying in the flow, no matter how hard the forces around you seem to be working to pull you out of it. And when you are pulled out of it, get back in it. Don't feel bad. Let the bad feelings go, man. Everybody fucks up. That's a part of living. But eventually, we see even beyond such concepts as that. And in essence, just like that old song that Katie Goodman did, we unfuck it all. We take out the trauma, the cruelty, the drama, and begin to live by peaceful means in peaceful ways, because we recognize, embrace, and employ the one love in all beings, which is the human heart, which is the heart in all, which is our love in motion. And these are just words. But I know in your heart, in your soul, and your mind that you're beginning to experience this. And all I can say is it's about time. We need this experience in all. And that's what we're here to create for one another. That's how we empower one another. And if we encounter ourselves in the person of another, creating acts of war, share that blessing of consciousness with them in that moment. Project it from your heart, through your forehead, through your hands, your open hands. Project it consciously to those beings that may be in troops advancing upon you, whether they be police or soldiers, foreigners, or, domestic, whatever. It doesn't matter. Send that picture of union, of all beings together in one form of life that lives in everything. Convey that, and you've just ended the war inside yourself and all around you. And there won't be any of this Armageddonish behavior here that some yahoos seek to create still. But again, I point out to you, the yahoos do this because they're tired and they want a release from it. And if you can love them enough to see them at that level, you've ended all the struggles on this earth that ever existed. It's that simple, really. But we sure does love our rock and roll. Recognize that too. Because in the struggle, it's given rise to a lot of nobility in ourselves and others, and a lot of cowardliness too. But there's been an aspect of ourselves that's thoroughly enjoyed that and doesn't want to let it go, because we've learned and gained so greatly by our dumb activities. It's truth, babies. Sentimental truth. Hey, I love you guys. Keep on rocking and rolling. But do it with the gentleness of your soul heart. Just know who you are, baby. Don't run. Stop struggling with truth. Let it go and be real.